this brings us to what I think is the other most important election this cycle, and this is happening in your state. Because unfortunately, in the last couple of years, some edict has come down from on high that the pro-life issue is a bridge too far now for the Republican Party. And I just walked our audience through again the data from the 2022 midterms, this idea that pro-lifers stayed home after getting Roe v. Wade. We turned out Democrats, even with their, I guess we'll call it, turnout operation advantage that they have now. Okay, the electorate was +3 Republican. All of the pro-life governors, such as yourself, my governor, Kim Reynolds, who signed her heartbeat bill into law in 2018 and then won a tough reelect in a bad year for Republicans after doing that, and then got reelected by an even harder, a greater margin as you did in 2022. So the data does not indicate this yet. It's been largely, evicted from the party platform, wasn't mentioned at all at the convention we just had. And Republicans are seeing results in Michigan and Ohio in referendums, and they're running scared right now. And there's now a similar ballot initiative in your state for a constitutional amendment. And I am warning my audience that if you are concerned that pro-lifers have lost all their momentum since the overturning of Roe now, go to Florida and lose in an election where Trump's going to probably win by 6 to 10 points on Election Day in a state where Republicans have a 1 million voter registration advantage now, courtesy of, frankly, your efforts. And lose this initiative in your state. And if you think you've got no clout now in the Republican Party, we lose this one in Florida in November. I don't see any clout for the foreseeable future in the Republican Party. I think this is an absolute must-win for the pro-life movement, and that's the main reason we wanted to have you on today. So first, start with that and set the scene for us. If you even if you agree with that kind of meta-analysis of the importance of this issue.
Well, what's being proposed in Florida is really a Chinese-style abortion regime. It would be as liberal or more liberal than California and New York. It eliminates entirely parental consent for minors having abortion. So as a parent, that'd be the one thing that they take away from you, even though that's a pretty doggone significant thing. Any other thing that a kid would want to do, you would have say in, but just not this. It would green light abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. It does not require a doctor to be involved in the decision. It says that you just need a, quote, healthcare provider, but that could be a clerk at Planned Parenthood. So you are going to see Florida would have the most extreme abortion regime anywhere in the country. And, sometimes when you say that, there'll be people that are kind of on our side politically who will say, well, there aren't late-term abortions. That doesn't happen. And that's just not true. It does happen. It is rare. It's probably less than 2% of all abortions nationwide, but the vast, vast majority of those are purely elective abortions. And there's financial reasons for this. There's people that make money off it in a variety of different ways. So that would be the reality in the state of Florida. Now, clearly, if that were explained to everybody, that would not get 60% of the vote, which you do need 60% in Florida. And so part of the challenge on these ballot initiatives in Florida is groups, interest groups, well-funded groups, in this case, left groups, including George Soros is funding this Amendment 4 in Florida. They draft what they want to add to the state constitution, but that's not actually what the voters see. The voters see a sanitized summary that the interest group gets to draft and put on the ballot. And so when people read that, even some pro-lifers have read it to not recognize how extreme it is. So I think really what needs to be done is to just educate people on the actual stakes of what this is. This is not something that a majority of people would support, certainly not 60% if it was explained accurately. But that's not how it appears on the ballot. You read it on the ballot, and they poll tested these phrases. They focus grouped it. There's an art to how they do this. So we're going to make sure that people know. We obviously need financial support. We need other support to do it. But it would make, we're the #1 state for tourism in the country because we've got nice beaches, great fishing, great theme parks. This would make Florida one of the top abortion tourism states in the entire United States. And so that would go from having legislation that protects unborn when there's a fetal heartbeat, similar to what Iowa has, to basically being an abortion travel destination state. And because this would be in the state constitution, there'd be nothing that the legislature could do to legislate against that.
So how can our audience help? I mean, we all heard some of the recordings that came out when you first launched your presidential campaign, and you had some of your advisors talking to donors and were right away trying to pressure you to moderate on this issue and water it down. And so I don't, is the support right there for you guys right now to defeat this thing? Are you going to have to maybe do this independent of the system because the donor class has given up on this issue, and either they're for it or they are running scared because they're believing data that doesn't exist? So, I mean, there's lots of different kinds of people. There are people in this audience can write checks. People in this audience can knock on doors. What is it you guys need?
I think all the above. I mean, I think you're right. I think traditional donor class, this is likely not something they're going to get involved in. Although we do have some people that are very strong pro-life who are supporting in really significant amounts, which is great. Florida is an expensive state to carry a message. It's not something that you can do cheaply, and so that's just something that we're going to have to do. We also have to recognize this is just the reality, not complaining, but this is the reality, is the media will be almost 100% in favor of this amendment in terms of their coverage, their tone. They are not going to help at all present this in a way that is accurate. That's just the nature of it. This is an issue that they are clearly on one side of. So we have to counteract that. So I think people that are willing to write checks is helpful, willing to volunteer, willing to just talk to people that they know in Florida, because I can tell you right now, people aren't really thinking about any of these amendments. We also have one that they're trying to do the marijuana. Like, we have medical marijuana.
Basically, they're trying to Michigan your Florida. They're trying to export Gretchen Whitmer's Michigan to your state, essentially.
Yeah, so they want to basically say, you can take it, smoke it wherever you want on the street, all this other stuff, which should not be good for the state. But nevertheless, so that's there. People aren't really thinking about it yet. So what's going to happen is September, October, that's when the battle will really heat up, I think, in a really big way. And it's just a messaging thing. Now, we need to get 40% plus one to vote no. So I would tell people, because I know that a lot of people were demoralized about what's happened in some of these other states. None of those other states, I believe, have a 60% threshold. I mean, Ohio was a special election. This was the only thing on the ballot, and they still only got about 56%. So that would not have passed if Ohio had Florida's rules for a supermajority threshold. So this is definitely something that can be defeated. It is very, very extreme. And, it's just like you look at what kind of society do you want to live in? And there's a lot of strategic disagreements about how do you further a culture of life. There's disagreements about if the federal government or state government or a combination of both. I think those are all healthy debates. But do we really want to live in a country where you can take a perfectly healthy, fully formed late-term baby and just snuff it out and have no legal protections at all for that and let people make a lot of money off doing that? That is not the type of culture, I think, that will ultimately succeed across a wide variety of other fronts. And so, yes, this is, I think Dobbs caught a lot of people flat-footed. I think there was disagreement about how to move forward. I do think that became the scapegoat for the failure of the 2022 midterms, even though you've pointed out the data as it actually is. So there's been a lot of different factors. But here we are now in the nation's third most populous state, a state that has led on every conservative issue under the sun for the last 5.5 years and actually delivered huge victories for the people and huge defeats for the left. I mean, there's not many instances where we're beating the left throughout the country. Here we've done it routinely. And so I think this is an example with Soros funding it, with all these lefty groups getting involved in this. They see this as a way to punch back, and we just can't let that happen.
Amen. Last question on this. You kind of just touched on it, but let's expand on that point more, because this is also going to be a pretty politically savvy audience here at the Blaze. So as you're uniquely qualified to answer this as someone who's pro-life, but also been a candidate, had to deal with some of the realities, both going on and what the future is post-Dobbs, and then also in opposition to the other side as well. You've had to navigate this as a professional politician too, and I mean that, as a guy that this is your vocation. So walk our people here tuned in right now, Ron, through what the world is like. If you're concerned that we've lost our momentum now post-Dobbs, what is the world like given the amount of casualties the left has taken in your state since you took over? If they are able to get 60% in your state, in a state that Trump's probably going to win by Florida standards for the presidential election, which is normally anywhere from 2 to 4 points, he's probably going to win it by more than that. I mean, how much of a steep climb do we have as a movement in the Republican Party on November the 6th if that is the result in your state, compared to even how difficult it is now?
Well, think about the 2022 election when I got reelected. Dobbs had happened. I was on record, with the heartbeat bill supporting. We had 300,000 more Republicans than Democrats at that point. That was a big deal at the time because we had never even had more Republicans in any election in Florida history until that one. But even since November of 22, when we won by 20 points, we've netted almost 700,000 more Republicans. And so, yes, we'll have 1 million registered Republican advantage over Democrats. I don't think structurally a Democrat could physically win the state of Florida. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm given those dynamics from the Democrats. But nevertheless, here we are. 1 million Republican, and we shouldn't say that all Republicans are pro-life because that's not true. Mm-hmm. And just like all Democrats, voters are not necessarily pro-abortion. Now, increasingly, that's becoming more the case, but there are definitely Democrat voters who are pro-life. So it's not a perfect partisan thing, but you would think that having 1 million voter advantage for Republicans, that just to hold 40% plus one, that should be something that would be doable. And obviously that would be bad for the state if this were added to the Constitution, but it would also have ramifications throughout the country, because think about all the other states where they don't have such a significant Republican advantage. And I think it would just add more fuel to the fire. And so I don't know what it will look like in terms of the National Republican Party in the landscape. But I guarantee you, if you're somebody that cares about creating a culture of life, having this Amendment 4 pass in Florida is definitely going to be detrimental to the efforts all across the country.
Amen. Governor, thank you for joining us. Is there a place you could direct our audience to if they want to get involved in this fight from all over the country? This is maybe the number one spotlight for the pro-life fight in this entire election cycle is this amendment in your state. So where can people go to learn more?
Well, if you go online, they have a group, No on 4. There's a 2 Extreme for Florida website people can go on. There's also a variety of other committees that are helping with this, and I think that's something that's encouraging. But you can definitely go on to find the Amendment 4 opposition groups, and we're working. It's a team effort. We've got people of faith, we've got churches, we've got other things out there just to tell the truth. And honestly, Steve, if everyone knows exactly what they're voting for, and are very crystal clear about what that is, one, I don't think it could pass. But if at that point it passed, I would not be happy with it. But, people have made their voice heard. My fear is that the message doesn't get out to where when people are going, they're voting for something that is really distorted in how it's been presented. So as long as we have the truth, and everyone can help, door knocking, phone calls, contributions. If we get the truth out there, I really believe that this amendment will fail.
Great stuff. Thank you, Ron. Good to see you, brother.
All right, see ya.